everybody. Welcome to another episode of Friends Talking Nerdy. This is Tim Jasma.
And I am Ken, the geek, as Tim insists that I call myself.
As you said before, it's on your Twitter profile.
It's my Twitter handle, but, I'm fine with just Kim.
Well,
or people could call me by my in-game name in Elder Scrolls Online, because I've been answering to that for years, too.
Well, still, Kim the Geek, though. I mean, if we ever get to the point where we get enough of an audience to where we can start selling merchandise, think about all the Kim the Geek t-shirts.
Kim the Geek merch, huh?
Yeah, just...
like a little anime character of me going, ee!
With a cape, like Supergirl.
Okay, alright.
Like Supergirl, bitch.
Superwoman. Superwoman!
Anyway. You've been watching TV this week?
I've been watching TV on Netflix.
All right.
I've been watching a series. It's called Rain, as in R-E-I-G-N, not the stuff that comes out of the sky constantly nowadays.
Is it purple?
No, it's not. But it's a series that was originally on the CW and ended in 2017. But what I like, it's historical fiction. Granted, it doesn't really stick to history very.
The CW not accurate?
I know. But I like it a lot. So it's basically following Mary Queen of Scots and her reign in France before she goes back to Scotland. And the characters, there's lots of strong women characters, and you know how I feel about that. And I love historical fiction. I read a lot of historical fiction. I love to watch it. I love shows with people with accents. And
crikey. Anyway.
No, not. That's not an accent. That's a parody, is what you just did.
What? Me? That's how everybody in Australia talks. Shrimp on the barbie, yeah? Right?
No.
I saw it on TV. It's got to be true, right?
The lead actress who plays Mary, Queen of Scots, her name is Adelaide Kane. And one of the other main characters is played by a woman by the name of Megan Follows. And she is the Queen Mother, Queen Catherine. And, man, these two, they are at each other's throats, and then they become unlikely allies at one point. So far. There's 4 seasons, lots of episodes for each season, like 22 episodes per season. So there's a lot of it to watch. And
being a CW show, I think it's safe to assume that everybody is absolutely beautiful.
Not everybody, but there are some very pretty people.
But we're talking probably not by not everybody. You mean some of the older characters may not be magazine cover, but if they showed up at a bar in Nebraska, everybody's going to be fawning all over them.
Well, people probably would fawn over them because of their accents. But there's the common folk. There's a lot of common folk.
Oh, the quirky-looking English character actor?
Of course, yeah. There's always some of those. I believe most of this was filmed, I think, in Canada.
Yes.
So there's a lot of Canadian actors and a lot of British and Canadian actors.
Apologize for cutting you off there, but it's CW. All of their DC shows for the Arrowverse film in Vancouver, Canada.
Not Vancouver, USA.
Well, if that were the case,
that'd be pretty cool though if it was filmed here. But
you would see me in the background like, "Hi, Supergirl," and then security dragging me away.
Yep. That stalker Tim is back.
Get him away!
Get him away! Get the mace. Anyway, it's got strong female characters. I like it. I don't know why I like it. I thought at first I wasn't gonna like it because it seemed like really cheesy and like some of the they'll be like dancing at like a feast or something, and the background music will be like it'll be string versions of popular hits. Like they played what's her name? The one who does the Royals song.
You're asking the wrong person.
I know.
Honestly.
Anyway,
Adele?
Not Adele. Lorde.
Lady Gaga?
It was Lorde who does that Royals song.
Okay.
It was popular. It was really popular a few years ago, which is when the show was in production.
People have heard my taste. I think the youngest band I listened to is from the 80s. So.
Yeah, you're not much for new music. But then again, I'm not.
Casey Musgraves, though. Hey, Casey Musgraves.
Okay.
She's great.
Okay, you and your Casey Musgraves fanboyism. I'm gonna come home one of these nights and there's gonna be a blow up doll looks like Casey Musgraves in the bed with you, and I'm just gonna be like, what the heck? And you're gonna be like, leave me and Casey alone.
you're recreating a Family Guy episode where Peter was at the bar and the bartender was going to throw an old Kathy Ireland beer standee. And he took it home, had an affair with it, but then got angry with it and started shaking it. Then the head fell off, and then he buried it in the backyard.
I had no idea I was recreating Family Guy.
You were recreating a family. You could be a writer on an animated sitcom.
Okay, then. Well, lucky me.
And that all, by the way, happened in the first 5 minutes of that episode. So.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess that's all I have to talk about with regards to Rain. Now that I've got that weird image in my head.
Well, I mean, being that you mentioned it from the CW, your reaction in terms of, I'm not really gonna like this, but then guiltily falling in love with it.
Yeah,
that's been my reaction to the Arrowverse shows. I mean, Arrow, Supergirl. I mean, Supergirl is corny as hell, but it owns it. It relishes in it. It bathes in it. It's in a good way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure, like, in terms of history, they're really fudging the details. But they've made some really strong female characters that are outwitting the men at every opportunity, which I always appreciate.
And that's the beauty of, history as well, whether it's fictional or non-fictional history. The fact that we can take characters out of history and put them in unique situations, to put them in silly situations. I mean, think Springtime for Hitler in The Producers.
Or Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
That, or any episode of Doctor Who, really.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, that's true. I mean, it is definitely a guilty pleasure. It's definitely a guilty pleasure type of show.
Yeah, it's not MASH, but hey,
Yeah, I'm enjoying it, and I think if you like shows like The Crown or Victoria, you'll probably like Rain.
Well, that's good. I probably won't, because I'll be the first to admit I'm not a fan of costume dramas.
Yeah, and I love costume dramas, so...
Yeah, but, having said that, as usual, that is just my opinion. I will stick with it. That does not mean the genre's bad. Blah, blah, blah. You get my drift.
I just thought of a movie that I can make you watch if I win our next Battle for State Supremacy.
Well, what movie would that be if, theoretically, you happen to win?
Gosford Park. It's a costume drama in a way. It's more of a modern costume drama. It's set after World War One. It's written by Julian Fellows, who did Downton Abbey, and it's got a lot of good actors in it. I think you would like it, actually. I think you would. It's a murder mystery, basically.
No, I will do my best to make sure that I will always win. So Delaware, you better have some kick-ass musicians living in that state if I ever pick you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be like Joe Namath before Super Bowl III. I guarantee I will never lose.
Are you gonna be wearing nylons like Joe Namath?
What?
He wore pantyhose. He did some commercials wearing pantyhose.
I mean, good for him, but I don't want that image. Okay.
Joe Namath and pantyhose, it's a thing. Look it up.
The 70s was a really weird place. Him, Bruce Jenner, hey.
What can I say? It's true.
Yeah. All right. We had a loss in the entertainment world this week.
Yeah, we did.
We did. Terry Jones, one of the founding members of Monty Python, has sadly passed away.
That is sad. Was it old age or something else?
Yeah, I mean, from what I read, I believe he did have some issues, some health issues, including, I believe, early onset dementia or something like that. But he was 76, I believe.
Yeah, that's not really early onset at 76. But
okay,
yeah.
Still, I'm recalling something I've read hours ago, so it's not perfect recall.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But
yeah, better be fine, damn it.
Dementia is really sad, and it's really painful to watch someone go through it. And unfortunately, it affects so many older people.
Yeah, last time I remember talking to my grandmother, She has dementia. She's like 95, 96.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we grow old in our family. And she, about 3 separate times during that conversation, talked about how another patient took a puzzle from her.
That's very common for a lot of people with dementias. They believe that things are being stolen from them.
Not only that, but she delivered that news to me each time as if it was the first time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my great-grandmother accused me of theft a couple of times.
Yeah.
Before she passed.
Well, my grandmother could be prickly at times as well. I mean, on the one hand, she, what I've, still love about her is the fact that, she always has something artistic going on somewhere. I mean, she was a photographer. She was, crocheter. She knits, does embroidery. I mean, she's always doing something creative, and that's, inspiring.
It is, and anybody who's still doing creative type things at that age it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And it's actually good for your brain to do things like that. Like doing a crossword puzzle every day is supposed to be really good for you mentally to help fight off dementia.
Well, Clash of Clans?
That's not the same.
Oh. Okay. Well,
Terry Jones.
Terry Jones. Yeah, I mean, long history with Monty Python. Directed one of my favorite movies, period. Monty Python's Life of Brian.
That's a good one.
Yeah, he's not the Messiah. He's a very naughty boy.
I was always partial to the Holy Grail.
That was the more commercial film, but Life of Brian for me was important on my path to atheism in the area I grew up with. It was a conservative side of Michigan, very religious, I say with quotations, and just the whole religious quandary that you get put in, and having the unique perspective of going to different denominations throughout my life. So it was a very insightful movie, more than anything. But one thing people don't realize about him is, and I'm going to my notes here, so if you hear me going off mic, that's why. The reason he was a historian. All the guys in Monty Python went to university. They all got, I believe, PhDs in something. His was history. And he's put out some really good documentaries.
That's what you were talking about yesterday.
Yeah. I posted one of the documentaries, one of my favorites from him, called The Story of One. It's about the history of numbers.
It sounds interesting. I think I'm going to have to check that out.
Yeah, again, I put it onto our Facebook group. Just do a search for Friends Talking Nerdy. You'll be able to find it there. And also a quick YouTube search. You'll be able to find it yourself, too, if you're too lazy to go that route. But he brings... When he does the documentaries, they are insightful educationally. You learn a lot by his presentation, but his work with Monty Python helps him to be a good presenter of that information to where you're actually learning, and you can sense his passion as well. And that, more than anything for me, is going to sell me on whether I like something or not. If the people behind it are putting their everything into it, you can always tell, even if it ends up being a shitty movie of some sort.
Definitely. And yeah, it makes all the difference when you can tell that the people who are making whatever it is you're watching are really into what they're doing.
Yeah. Now, one thing I found out too, I didn't realize, and I've never seen the movie, period, because I'm not a fan of those types of fantasy movies, but he was the writer on Labyrinth.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
I love Labyrinth.
Yeah.
It's like one of my favorites.
Yeah, I mean, I have all the respect in the world for Jim Henson, growing up with the Muppets, growing up with Sesame Street and whatnot, but his fantasy work, I know as in the late 80s he had, I believe they were called like Jim Henson Presents or the Jim Henson Story Hour or something like that. It was specials on NBC. He would be essentially like the host, like Rod Serling, and it would be like 1 or 2 fantasy stories that they would tell.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people were into The Dark Crystal, but I never really liked it. It kind of scared me when I was a kid.
Never saw that either. I don't even remember it being advertised.
Yeah, I saw it and it scared me, but I always liked Labyrinth. Mainly because I like David Bowie. I've always liked David Bowie, so. But yeah, Labyrinth is a fun movie, I think.
Yeah. So again, sad loss. I mean, thanks to him, anytime I think of a stereotypical English woman, I hear his voice. Well, I didn't vote for you. Type of deal. So, people in England, if they do happen to listen to the show, can mock me now.
Well, I mean, you're basically imitating somebody else's mockery, so I wouldn't be too upset about that.
It's more lazy than anything on my part. Oh, we got Phil in the house.
Phil the cat. Yep. Yes.
Anyway, so sad news there, but again, he was 76. Life was lived, and look at the impact he had.
Yes, you can't really ask for much more than that.
Yeah. Now, speaking of asking much from life, you were reading a news story.
Yes, and speaking of cats, so there's this guy in Oklahoma who goes by the name of Joe Exotic. He owned and ran this, what he called an animal sanctuary. But it wasn't a true animal sanctuary because he was breeding, buying, and selling tigers without an FDA license. And he was convicted today, well, not convicted, but sentenced today of murder for hire, as well as all of his FDA, what do you want to call them, violations. All his FDA violations.
You say he wasn't from Florida?
No, he wasn't. But all right. So there's this animal sanctuary owner in Florida who'd been trying for years to get him shut down because of all the crappy things he was doing to the animals he was taking care of.
Right.
Because he was basically claiming to be a sanctuary, but then he was breeding the animals and touring the animals and to like state fairs and stuff. And that basically does not mean that you're a sanctuary. Sanctuaries, they sterilize their animals. They're there to take care of the animals and to basically care for them until the end of their natural life. They're not in the business of showing the animals or making money off being a zoo or what have you.
Right.
What they do is they take care of the animals until the end of their natural lives. And they rescue animals from bad situations. So there was an animal sanctuary in Florida who was trying to get him shut down because of the terrible things he was doing. And so he came up with a murder for hire plot. And it turns out an FBI agent working with U.S. Fish and Wildlife was the person he solicited to murder this sanctuary owner.
Yeah, I mean, you showed me the picture of the guy's mugshot, and he does not look like the brightest bulb in the pack.
No, I'll link the article from the Washington Post on our Facebook, and it's a pretty glorious mullet and neck tattoos and the works. He just looks like like a douchebag.
He also looks like a card-carrying member of the NRA and someone who voted a Republican down the ticket in 2016. The general stereotype.
The general stereotype. Anyway, he's not a good man. And in general, it gives me a chance to talk about animal sanctuaries versus pay for pets type thing. So there's a lot of animal sanctuaries out there. The good ones are the ones that are just caring for the animals until they reach their end of their natural lives. They're not breeding them. They're not showing them. They're not a zoo per se. Mm. They're not engaged. Zoos, on the other hand, they're the ones who are engaged in trying to, a lot of the work that zoos do has to do with habitat preservation and breed preservation and things of that nature. And they do breed animals, but it's for the greater good rather than for profit. Whereas guys like this Joe Exotic, who just got sentenced to 22 years in federal prison, he was basically in it for the money. And so he was doing things like providing tiger cubs for people to come and have photo opportunities with, which is not good for the animals. It perpetuates the notion of breeding endangered species. It encourages inbreeding. And then a lot of times when the cubs get to an age where they're unmanageable, because they're friggin' wild cats, they're tigers, they end up getting killed, usually. And then the parts get sold on the black market.
It reminds me of the sickening video that I saw on Twitter It was these guys at what looked like a bachelor party or just a jock party or, we got small penis party or whatever. And for whatever reason, they had a lion at the party as well. And then one of the guys put a pie in the lion's face.
Oh, God.
And just... that was one time where it would have been great to see that lion go like, fuck this.
Yeah. Well, what it comes down to is the wild cats are not meant to be pets. And a lot of what sanctuaries do they end up rescuing a lot of large and small cats that people thought they could have as pets. And then they realize, hey, this is a wild cat. It's pissing all over my house and it's really stinky, and they usually end up declawed, sometimes defanged, in an effort to make them a better pet. And they just end up being miserable, frustrated cats until they get rescued by a sanctuary and allowed to live as wild as they possibly can. There's a couple of really good sanctuaries that I follow on Facebook. One is, they're called Wildcat Sanctuary, and they're in Minnesota. There's another one called Wildcat Ridge Sanctuary, and they're actually here in the Northwest.
Nice. And
they do a lot of good work. I try to toss them some money when I can. But yeah, it's amazing how many of the sort of smaller wildcats, like servals and lynx and bobcats, people think that they can make them pets. Or what some people do is they will breed the smaller wildcats to domestic cats to make cats like the Bengal cat. And granted, Bengals are really pretty, but when they're in their first or second generation of breeding, they are not pets. They are still very wild. They are very hard to keep as pets because of the fact that they tend to spray.
Yeah.
They're still very wild at heart, and they don't make very good pets. And so a lot of these cat sanctuaries also take in the sort of domesticated cats that people can't handle for whatever reason. And they tend to have more of those than any other cats. And it's crazy. Their websites are lots of pretty pictures. And you're just like, oh, they're so pretty. I want to have one. No, you don't want to have one. No, stick to going to the Humane Society and adopting a domestic cat. There are plenty of domestic cats that make excellent pets. And
also take the time to adopt an older cat or an older dog, an older animal that doesn't necessarily get the first looks of people that come in and take a look at it, because those are going to be the first ones to die. And like my cat Phil, 12, Peach is 10.
Yeah, Peach is 10.
And just because they happen to be that age does not make them bad. And
then you'll be like, oh, but I'll get attached and then they'll pass away. I adopted my cat Boris when they approximated his age at 10 because he was a stray. Mm-hmm. I had him for 11 years. That's a long time to have a pet, regardless of the age that you got them at. Yeah. 11 years. So that were great years, and I do not regret adopting a senior pet ever. And senior pets are great. I mean, we're kind of getting off topic, but at the same time, I'm very much pro adopting animals of any age from a shelter. But yeah, I definitely have a predilection for adopting older cats, just because by that time you know what their personality is going to be. And
dopey, right, Phil?
Yeah, okay. like Phil's just a kind of happy dope
Hi.
who likes to get exactly that would be his voice. Yeah. Hi, I'm Phil. No, but he's kind of dopey and he's happy, but he loves to snuggle. He's a good cuddler.
But the fucker bites, bitch.
He does he nibbles. He gives love nibbles.
Yeah, but still it hurts. Like when he bit my nose, little fucker.
And he likes to get into the garbage if you don't close it tightly. He likes to forage, and that probably comes from him being a stray.
Yeah.
But Peach is a bit more prickly. She was returned to the shelter a couple of times.
Yeah.
But I brought her home, and I haven't returned her.
But if I can get to the point to where I can pet her...
Yeah, Tim can pet her now. I'm surprised, actually. I figured it would happen at some point. I didn't think it would happen so quickly.
Well... I was going to think of a joke, but I'll be nice and not say. I shouldn't. Anyway,
yeah, if you want to look into more about animal sanctuaries, go for it. But if you are traveling and you have an opportunity to have a picture opportunity with a wild animal, it's probably not a good idea to participate, because that just perpetuates the idea of wild animals as pets, and perpetuates the idea of breeding cats for money, for monetary purposes, when we shouldn't be doing that. It's not right. It goes against their nature. It hurts animals in the end. And Joe Exotic, he was one of those people who like to breed different breeds together, like lions and tigers together, things like that, to create new cats. We don't need to be doing that either. No. We need to be working to preserve habitat for the wild animals that we already have, and doing what we can to encourage wild animals to remain in the wild.
Yeah, not everything has a profit level, you know.
Yeah, and not everything should be bent to human wishes either.
Unless it's for hilarious purposes. No, I'm kidding.
Always trying to go for the joke. That's Mark Tim.
Would you please stop, Tim? Well, we had within the past week here, about a week and a half ago, the final result of the latest induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame was announced.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Who are the final results? Go ahead and list them first, and then we'll talk about them one by one.
Okay. Well, let's just go through them one by one here, because I got plenty to say. Now, this is going to be the list of people that made it. I will go through a list of the folks that didn't make it and comment on my opinion on why I either agree or disagree with it.
So how many actually made it?
Let's see. 6.
Jeez.
6 bands. But we're not going to go through their entire history, just general impressions. I think we can make a segment out of this without it being too long and boring you. So is that okay?
I am sorry. That's right. Queen Kim has spoken. You know what I need is one of those jeweled staffs to bang on the ground after I've finished speaking.
That'd be your bad guy wrestler persona, Queen Kim.
Queen Kim? Okay.
I have spoken!
I have spoken!
Kiss the ring.
Kiss something else. My ass! Okay.
There's more merchandising right there. Anyway. It's an animated picture of you with your butt out, like, kiss it.
Kiss it. Kiss it.
All right, so one person that made it, 9 Inch Nails.
Okay. I like 9 Inch Nails. I know you're not a huge fan, but I like them.
But having said that, I have no problem with them being inducted. You know, they deserve that spot. Just because I'm not a fan does not mean I don't see the contribution they made to music in general, rock music specifically. Notorious B.I.G.
Okay. The thing with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is they are, you know, we've talked about this at length, both on and off mic, that they've inducted quite a few folks that aren't necessarily rock and roll, but they have influenced music in general, including rock. I would say rap has been a huge influence on rock and roll in general, so there's no reason why you shouldn't include rap artists in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
True. Yeah.
And vice versa. I mean, rock and roll influences rap, too. It's both. It goes both ways.
Yeah, I mean, I believe Run DMC's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Their work with Aerosmith speaks for itself. That you know, Walk This Way with Aerosmith and Run DMC together open the doors to rap music to white America and open the doors to rock music to black America. That was an important moment in music history, for the 80s at least. You know, and like we discussed too, Public Enemy and NWA. I mean, they very much follow in the tradition of the protest song. You know, so definitely deserved. Again, not a fan of Notorious B.I.G.
I'm not a fan either.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't making music for me, so, you know, but again, you can't deny his impact, and he does have a place in rock history, in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Depeche Mode.
I love Depeche Mode. A lot of people might dismiss them out of hand as, like, synth rock, blah blah blah, mopey boys from England.
Well, remember,
I hate these guys.
but remember the example I gave to you was Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top, seeing them in concert and being so inspired by their work with the synthesizer in his blues-based format, he used it on Eliminator. I mean, Give Me All Your Lovin', Sharp Dressed Man had a synthesizer as a bass essentially because of Depeche Mode. That alone, to me, is one reason why they deserve to be.
Well, yeah, and Depeche Mode, their music has eclipsed just their beginnings as a little do 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 do. I just can't get enough.
And put it this way, if Johnny Cash can take one of your songs and do his interpretation of it similar to Nine Inch Nails, I think that's saying something if Johnny Cash himself thinks you're good enough to cover.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I don't see any problems with Depeche Mode in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah. All right, the Doobie Brothers.
I don't see any problems with that either.
I don't. But knowing how the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, cast their ballots, am a little shocked that they haven't made it a lot sooner, because the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, people that do cast the votes for the ultimate finals, do tend to favor that type of music.
Yeah.
But I just have a problem with them getting in over Judas Priest, over Motorhead, over Pat Benatar.
Well, maybe those guys will all be next year.
Who knows with Judas Priest and Motorhead, and I don't think their respective band, their respective fans really care that much about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah, they're just like, oh, okay, whatever.
They're just like, fuck it, and it's probably the attitude I should have, but I have a podcast to fill, so we're going to talk about it. Another person, T-Rex.
That's cool.
Yeah, again, another artist that I'm shocked hasn't been inducted earlier, because, again, this is the type of music that generally the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame committee that votes on this stuff actually goes for, and also with his, I know he was an influence on David Bowie, and a lot of people, so I can see it. Not a huge fan of the music. Bang a Gong is an okay song, but even then I prefer the Robert Palmer, what's that supergroup that he did with Duran Duran?
Power Station.
Power Station. I prefer that.
I like the Power Station. I thought they did some good work.
And Robert Palmer, it is a crime that people are really only aware of Addicted to Love.
I know how you feel. You've told me before.
I'm thinking that Chris Rock joke now. Why don't you go get kidnapped? Then we'll have something new to talk about.
Oh. That's terrible. I would never want you to get kidnapped.
I would leave you before then.
I'm also not going to hire anybody to murder you when I could do it myself.
This may be our last episode of Friends Talking.
No, I was just thinking back to Joe Exotic and why he was like hiring someone. I'm like,
this will be my show.
Isn't that one of those things that you would sort of, isn't that kind of a DIY thing that you'd prefer to do yourself?
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right, so the sixth entrant, the final entrant, I've been saving the best for last. Whitney Houston.
Saving the best for last. That's one of her songs.
I don't care. I'm going to give my honest opinion. She deserves her place in music history. Not a personal fan, didn't care for her work, but you can't deny the impact she had over the years. But she was a pop artist.
Yeah.
She has no real connection to the rock industry apart from her drug habit, sad to say.
It's true. You're singing my song.
I mean,
I said this before when she got nominated. I was like, "What?"
Yeah, I mean the fact is Whitney Houston is being nominated simply because they know that her kids on the stage and with her fans being as voluminous as they are will bring the ratings.
Bring the ratings, bring some money, all of that stuff. Yeah, and I mean she's influenced a lot of folks, but it's the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's not the Pop Music Hall of Fame. It's not the Soul Music Hall of Fame.
Having said that, though, someone on Twitter brought up other examples. Now, I have no problem with somebody that is not primarily a rock artist getting into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But they have to have some reason to be there, like James Brown, for instance, Godfather of soul music. But Mick Jagger wouldn't be Mick Jagger without James Brown. Mm-hmm. Led Zeppelin wouldn't be Led Zeppelin without the influence of James Brown. James Brown, the influence on rock music is definable. He deserves to be in there. Motown acts. We talked during the Battle for State Supremacy how the Beatles covered a Smokey Robinson song. The Beatles. Mm-hmm. Okay, one of the greatest rock bands of all time. Motown acts deserve to be there. If anybody can definitively give me an answer as to what connection Whitney Houston has to rock and roll music, I will listen with open ears and then make a decision after that. And if I agree with you, I will be the first to say so. But Whitney Houston has no connection whatsoever to rock music. That's just a fact.
I'd have to agree with you. I don't understand beyond like the profit.
It's a business decision more than anything, because also folks that get inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, guess what label they get to put on, past releases? They're Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They get to make a little extra money by, saying they're Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's like with the WWE with their Hall of Fame. People that get inducted into there are now able to go to comic conventions or wrestling conventions around the country. And yes, I found a way to bring wrestling in this week. Yes! But they're able to go around and earn a little bit more money simply because they can officially have that WWE Hall of Famer logo stamped onto their poster.
Yeah, I mean, granted that Whitney Houston is no longer with us, but there's nothing, that's really preventing her estate from releasing some kind of special edition Hall of Fame greatest hits compilation, or maybe they'll go through whatever library they still have of unreleased material and release a special Hall of Fame edition of something. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of money-making opportunities there.
And that's all this business decision was. It was a business decision. It wasn't artistic. It wasn't based on merit. And again, to people that may listen to this that absolutely adore Whitney Houston, I am not knocking her place in overall music history. She left quite the impression, and did a lot for women in music.
Yeah.
I would argue, though, that she belongs more in the Country Music Hall of Fame. If you're going to take an artist from a different genre and induct them into another genre's Hall of Music, because I Will Always Love You alone, covering a Dolly Parton song and taking it to greater heights than Dolly Parton did, opening people's eyes to the fact that Dolly Parton actually wrote that song. Most people only really know her from 9 to 5.
Yeah, which is unfortunate. Dolly Parton's great.
And I Will Always Love You, that song is one reason why. I mean, she's, a great singer and songwriter. And this fucking pisses me off. Just because, like, some of the bands that didn't make it, Pat Benatar, why? She should have been there already.
Yeah.
I mean, Hit Me With Your Best Shot, Heartbreaker, 2 hits alone.
Yeah.
This one was on the fence, but, based on how they voted in the past and, with Chaka Khan being involved, Rufus with Chaka Khan, they should already be there. I don't get why. Dave Matthews Band, they're a little on the young side. I think they will get there eventually, but
I'm kind of surprised they're not there already. If you want to talk about making money, there are legions of Dave Matthews Band fans.
Still, though, I'm only referring to essentially the age of that group compared to some other acts that are eligible or will be eligible soon. They will get there. I have no doubt about that.
Yeah.
I just think they're still very much a viable band. They don't have to worry about this compared to other bands. But you got Motorhead, Thin Lizzy, Judas Priest. They need to be there. But again,
you can't see him, but he's literally shaking his fist.
Metal music is, for the most part, just hard rock or metal. has been notoriously ignored by the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame since day one. And there are other bands, too, that they just casually ignore just because they don't happen to like it, like the Monkees. You know, Hall of Fames end up meaning something to people, like this means something to me, just because you have a passion for that art in general. You know, and when you see bands that deserve the accolades of people saying you are one of the best, you deserve to be in this Hall of Icons, get passed over for people that are good workers, impacted their own genre of music, and, you know, should be respected for their history, get inducted before them. I'm sorry, it's shows that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame still has a long way to go before they, you know, are able to get back some of the respect they maybe once had at some point.
Wow. You had a lot to say about that.
Because fuck them.
Okay, then. Should we talk about this week's recording that we listened to?
Yeah, we're going to go from, fuck them to a Paul Simon album.
Oh. This was Tim's choice.
My choice. Yes.
Well, it was Paul's choice.
But I put it on the poll. I mean, I put the 4 choices on, so, you know, this is one I had no problem talking about. This is the first Paul Simon recording I ever heard. You know, like, I mean, it came out when I was in 5th grade, I believe. And I remember when the video for You Can Call Me Al came out. And like at the time, the teacher that we had would have like journal writing time that the kids had to do. We had to write in a journal to him, and him and I, for whatever reason, started writing in code. You know, the code being, you know, the letter A would be represented by the number 1, B number 2, and so on and so forth. And then, you know, we would just write it out in code and then get the response. And then one time I said, I like, you know, the Paul Simon video, you know, You Can Call Me Al. And he goes, I like Paul Simon too. And I'm like, oh my God, I have something in common with my teacher.
Oh, you're such a nerd.
Yeah. Paul Simon, though, hit the big time with Art Garfunkel in the 60s. And
Simon and Garfunkel.
Yep. And in the late 60s, early 70s, there was no big heroin addiction. There was no big fight or anything like that. They were just like 2 people in a relationship that decided they need to be away from each other. So they went their separate ways. Paul Simon had a few hit albums until the early 80s.
Yeah, I was reading about the history of this album, and he hit a slump and decided to do something different and out of the box to kind of wake himself back up.
Yeah, he was given, there's if you can find it, I believe it's on Amazon, and there are other places you can find, Access TV, for instance. There was a show that was originally out of England, but it airs in America at sometimes, called Classic Albums. And they do an entire 1-hour documentary on the creation of an album. And one of the albums they did was Graceland. And he talked about how he was given a bootleg recording of South African music. And he was listening to it constantly because he was building a house in New York. And when he would go back and forth to the new property, he would have that cassette in the player listening to it. And he realized that, you know, he really dug it. And he had executives at Warner Brothers kind of do a little digging for him and found out that specifically, yes, they were South African musicians, which in the 80s was a bit of a controversial thing.
Yeah, I was reading about that too, because in the 80s, South Africa was in the grips of apartheid.
Yeah.
Which, if you don't know what that is, basically it was a system of government that put whites in power with laws and regulations, and anybody whose skin was not white was less than a citizen, basically.
Yeah, if you've heard Trevor Noah in any of his stand-up specials, he grew up in South Africa. His mother was black, his father was white, and grew up, you know, his early childhood was during the last days of apartheid. So, yeah, it was not a good time, and it wasn't the easiest decision to make either, because the UN had what they called a cultural ban.
Yeah.
And basically stating that no artist should work in South Africa as long as apartheid was in place.
And I can understand why they did that, because they basically didn't want people to financially support a government that was not for all of its citizens. And if you want to know more about this history in South Africa, the basic Wikipedia pages are actually pretty well written about this. So those are a good starting point if you want to learn more about apartheid and the history of apartheid.
Yeah, it's just the one thing, though, that the UN cultural ban did not take into account was the impact that art can bring to people.
Yeah.
I think of the recent controversies with the WWE going to Saudi Arabia. And one former announcer from them, Jim Ross, commented that, he saw no problem with that because it brings a bit of American culture to Saudi Arabia and that can plant a seed for the future. However, with that example, that company is being paid directly by the Saudi Arabian government to show up and put on that pay-per-view, and similar to the Olympics when they were in China, the announcers have to say nothing but great things about being in the wonderful kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
The reason I bring that example up is if we are talking about, to your point, taking money from a government to perform a concert as a sort of a propaganda tool, I absolutely agree that. If we, however, are talking about a private institution, like there was a resort in South Africa called Sun City. There was a famous song in the 80s from Steven Van Zandt, who was a guitar player for Bruce Springsteen in the E Street Band. That he had a benefit song called I Don't Want to Play Sun City.
I read about that too.
Yeah, and if we are talking about a private organization like Sun City paying somebody on a private level to come and play, I don't necessarily see the problem with that. It's still a little touchy because Sun City being a resort, only whites are going to be there.
Yeah, that's the problem right there, is that it's a whites only resort if it was like an inclusive resort.
Okay, so not the best example in my part, but if it was, my example holds as long as it was an artist being able to show their art to the full audience, not just a segregated audience.
Well,
if it was a segregated audience, then my argument does not stand.
Well, and what Paul Simon did, too, is he basically smuggled himself into the country and spent 2 weeks, 3 weeks, kind of in hiding with all of these African artists working on stuff for the album. And when I was reading about this, I mean, most of the musicians didn't have permits to be out after a certain time. So they had to arrange like private cars to take everybody home and just things like that. I'm just like, God, that was the 80s. That wasn't like that. It just boggles my mind that people were still living under that late in our history.
Yeah.
It
Well, we have people.
It's just
we
upsetting.
have children in cages now, so
yeah, and that's upsetting too. It's just, I just get really angry and just sad, and that sort of ball in your stomach that just makes you feel upset.
Now you're shaking your fist.
Brr.
Damn right. But the beauty, I think, of what Paul Simon did. Now, I know some folks in the 80s, especially, did say that maybe he was abusing the system because, again, in that culture, the white people have essentially for years upon years told black people that they are subservient. So he was essentially using the musicians, and they were not in a position to say no. However, in that same documentary I told you about, the classic albums, one member from Ladysmith Black Mambazo, the vocal group that's featured on a couple tracks on this album here, they said, quite the contrary. They used him as much as he used them. They realized that one way to show, to essentially end apartheid, essentially. They didn't say this specifically in the documentary, but in that political time, I think this does fit. One way to show that was to showcase the art of the black culture from South Africa.
Oh, definitely. That, in art, in song, I mean, we were mentioning the protest song earlier. It's the same basic thing. It's like when you start engaging people with music. Music is a very easy way to engage people in your cause. It gets the word out. It gets people to pay attention. And I think that's, I don't think that his album was like the end of apartheid or anything like that, but I'm sure it helped. It helped to get the message out, because even at that time, a lot of people in the United States didn't know what it was. I mean, I remember this time in the 80s, and I remember the first time I learned what apartheid was. I saw a ban apartheid sticker on somebody's car, and I was like, what is that? And my mom explained it to me, and I was just like, that's terrible. And immediately I'm anti-apartheid. I started talking about it to everybody I knew.
Yeah. I mean, I would hope you would be. That would be kind of awkward finding that out now. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be kind of awkward. What?
Yeah. Anyway.
But it just blew my mind. Even it blows my mind now, and it blew my mind then, that there would be a place in the world, being that I'm living in the United States, where you were basically just being judged only on the color of your skin and not by your actions. And that's always bothered me when people do that. You don't judge people like that. You just don't. Yeah. It's not right. And speaking to Paul Simon's, decision to go to South Africa to record, I mean, he didn't really, if he wanted to work with these musicians, he didn't really have a choice. He couldn't bring them here.
No, he ultimately did. He was able, because the initial recordings, yes, were in South Africa, but then for other songs on the album, it was recorded in New York, and he was able to get those musicians to fly over to New York to record, and was able to not only get them triple the rate a comparable United States-based musician would get to be in that recording. He ended up giving ones that contributed to the songwriting credit.
Yeah, that's right. I did read about that. However, he got Los Lobos to help on one of the tracks. Yeah, and we'll get to that. We'll get to that when we get to that particular song here. But like we do, we're going to go through the album track by track here. We're going to give our honest opinions. So there may be songs we like, there may be songs that we don't like. But for me, this is one of my favorite albums. One I can always put on and from start to finish, enjoy. So okay, I'm glad you feel that way.
But that's the beauty of what we're doing too, right? I encourage, I like it when healthy conversation about, why I like something and why I don't is able to be had. I mean, and there's one podcast, and we'll go a little more in depth on podcasts that we like on a future episode, but there was one called Your Favorite Band Sucks.
Oh, I love that one.
Yeah, she sent me a link to one that they did about The Who without telling me the premise of what these guys do.
No, because not telling you the premise would have ruined the whole thing.
Yeah, because what they do on that show is they go with every contrary argument for why a band is good to turn it into why they are bad.
It makes you think more critically.
Yeah, it like for The Who, they said that they were a ripoff of the Kinks. They said that Limp Bizkit was better.
Yeah.
And by that point, I got what was happening, but it took me a little bit. So
yeah, it's a kick. I listened to their Beatles episode, and that was a little hard. I'm currently listening to the Stone Temple Pilots episode, and I pretty much agree with everything they say, because I think the Stone Temple Pilots aren't that great. There's a couple songs that I'm kind of like, but they just sound like Pearl Jam to me.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. I mean, they're more of a greatest hits band for me.
Yeah, exactly. But we're not talking about them right now.
Yeah.
We're talking about this album. In a field. Okay.
All right, first track in the album, The Boy in the Bubble. What'd you think?
Okay, all right. So the intro to this song, it's just kind of disjointed. It just sounds kind of chaotic, and then it sort of settles into a rhythm. Mm-hmm. And that disjointed intro, I kind of wanted to just skip immediately. It just was kind of an assault.
You didn't like the accordion?
I like the accordion.
Or is it the drum?
I don't like accordions that are like...
Like Morrissey?
I'm going to punch you one of these days. It's going to hurt. I'm going to break your glasses. No. No, it's not that I don't like the accordion, because the accordion, I like accordion sounds. I mean, I went for Weird Al last week.
Yeah.
So it's not that I don't like accordion. I do.
Messing with you on that one. But...
I do like accordion. It's just that I didn't like the way that this song started. It's like the first 10 to 15 seconds, it's just really kind of disjointed. And then it's kind of like when you're warming up. It sounded like the accordion was kind of, whoever was playing was kind of like warming up. And they just recorded it and it was like, oh, let's go with it.
Well, they talked about in the Classic Albums documentary that Roy Halley, the producer on the album, talked about the South African sessions were more just 9 times out of 10 jam sessions where the entire band was in one room looking at each other, body language indicating, what to do next, and just jamming.
And that's cool and everything.
What they would do is take those South African recordings when they brought them back to New York is... like in one case isolate an accordion bit, in another case isolate a guitar bit, and then maybe add a little something else to spice up that recording. So to your point, this is probably one of those instances where the New York and South African sessions were kind of mishmashed together and probably not so perfect the way, in your opinion.
Yeah, it's just it wasn't, the rest of the song was okay. It's just this beginning part of the song. I was just like, my ears. I'm like, is it gonna get better? Okay, I guess it is a little better now. It's okay. Just, it was kind of like when you're listening to a band tune up, and you're just like, oh, that's painful, that's not right, and then they get it right, and you're like, okay, that's all right.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Goo Goo Dolls. No.
Oh.
Anyway, the notes I had, Boy in the Bubble. I don't mind the song. I think it's pretty good. I think it was a nice way to open the album. It's not too overpowering or anything like that. It's not like what the Rolling Stones would do and have something like Start Me Up be the first track on the album.
Yeah, that's called peaking high and then not finishing. That's just...
That's most men. Hey, you're going to say that?
That's true.
Shut up. I'm kidding. The accordion, I thought, was an appropriate level. I thought the accordion actually added to the song for me. I did make a comment about the amount of lyrics that Paul Simon has, because similar to other artists that we've featured on the show, he is from a folk rock tradition and or folk music tradition as well, that where the songwriter singer is part of the tool, and some of those songwriters were like the Eddie Van Halen of songwriters, and Paul Simon was essentially one of them in terms of being able to put a lot of words into a song. For this album, I did not mind. I think it flowed well, and I think the lyrics kind of, even if you don't necessarily pay attention to the lyrics, they're not overpowering. It's the right type of vocals, it's delivered the right way that contributes to the song.
I don't know. I guess I'm more literal than a lot of folks, but when the song is called "The Boy in the Bubble," I thought it was actually going to be about the boy in the bubble.
Well, they mentioned the boy in the bubble and the baby with a baboon heart, and I believe.
Yeah, it's just
you wanted.
I wanted it to be about that movie with John Travolta in it.
That started him on the path to Scientology.
Yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah. I forgot to mention that the bass of the song and the bass on the entire album, the bass work, if it made me noticed, it was really good. And I liked the kind of harmonizing at the end, the ooh, I'm not Paul Simon, so that's... All right, the next song on the album is the title track, Graceland.
This is I like this song because it sounds like it's a good driving song. It just kind of bubbles along like da 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 da, and it's kind of a relief on the ears after the disjointed accordion at the beginning of the previous track. There's an article that I read that I cannot find for the life of me. I was looking for it before we started recording. It was this story that this guy wrote about listening to this album with his kid and finally going on a road trip to Graceland as a result. It was a really sweet article. I just can't remember where I read it, and I can't remember who wrote it. And so I tried to Google, Graceland article, blah, 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 and I just got a whole bunch of travel reviews to the actual Graceland, and okay, I tried a whole bunch of different search options. So if like anyone is listening and knows which article I'm referring to, link it on like our Twitter or something. But yeah,
Okay.
I like this song. It's a good road trip song.
This is one of the best songs on the album. I like it too. Part of the song actually details his emotions about his marriage to Carrie Fisher ending.
Yeah.
Yeah, Carrie Fisher was a big fan of the Saturday Night Live group because for a while during the filming of the Blues Brothers, her and Dan Aykroyd dated. She was married to Paul Simon, so...
I love Carrie Fisher. I do. She had her issues.
But she was open about it. She was human about it, and she encouraged other people to be open and human about it because that is the only way we're going to break out of the bonds that, mental illness put on us.
Mental illness, drug addiction, all that stuff. And a lot of people who have mental illnesses that aren't properly treated, they tend to be addicted to drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
Because it's a way to keep things quiet in your head, or at least you think.
Yeah, shut up.
Pretty much.
Now on the song, I did like that the two people that provided the backing vocals on the song were the Everly Brothers.
Sorry.
Really? I was so bored. Yeah, no.
I'm not bored. Sorry, I took a nap before we started recording, and I'm still coming back from that. So
yeah, the Everly Brothers provided the backing vocals on Graceland. Without the Everly Brothers, there would have been no Simon and Garfunkel. So, I mean, they'd be the first to admit that. So this is Paul Simon essentially getting to sing a song with his heroes. Another thing I really liked about the song, and you can say that for pretty much the entire album, is the song and the album overall does have this weird mixture of familiarity and uniqueness blended together. It's familiar, but just different enough to make you appreciate that, the music itself, not the lyrics, were created by musicians from another culture with a different worldview, with a different, mind point, but their interpretation of what music from the 50s and 60s was. And it's amazing to hear stuff like that.
Yeah, and I like world music in general, which is what a lot of people classify the South African parts of this album as, like just general world music. And I actually remember checking out from the library a cassette of South African musicians in the late 80s and just listening to that over and over, just going, wow, this is really interesting. Just the drumming and the singing. And I really did appreciate those parts of the album. It's not on this song in particular, but just in general, I liked the mix of the different and the same. Yep. Yeah. But then that brings up another question that I was going to bring up more on another track, which is cultural appropriation.
Well,
is he exploiting, African music to make a buck? Is he trying to make it his own and not give credit where credit is due, that sort of thing? I don't know.
I don't think it's that at all. I mean, because to this day he still tours with Ladysmith Black Mambazo, and his their work with him on Graceland got them American record deals. They're still touring today as well.
Yeah. So
in terms of stealing it and claiming it for his own, no. But there is an argument too that who made the most money off of Graceland? Paul Simon. And there is, I mean, while his career was in a slump before Graceland occurred, he was still appearing regularly on Saturday Night Live. He still would have, if Graceland never occurred, he'd still show up on Saturday Night Live because of his history up to that point. He was not at a point to where he desperately needed to release an album. In fact, the documentary talked about that this was the first album that he really actively wasn't looking to write a hit. He just wanted to make music that impressed him. So I think there is no black and white here. I think there is definitely part of it where, he did, make money off of other people's work. However, those people in question will, from interviews I've heard, thank him for that, because he made every effort to do what the Beatles did, to do what the Rolling Stones did, and that's, tell their audience that if you like this song, go buy their work. So it's not a perfect answer, but I think overall, he did a good thing for this album.
Okay, let's go on to the next track.
All right, I Know What I Know. What do you think?
Oh, so I was enjoying it, and then the background vocals got super high pitched and frantic, and at the end I'm just like, stop. I was just literally, it was making me feel anxious just listening to it, and I skipped the track because I usually listen to the album about 3 or 4 times before the show, just so I feel like I've got a good grasp on what it sounded like. And yeah, I had to skip that track and just like, oh my god, stop. Oh,
I do admit, I had in my notes that this is one of the weaker tracks on the album, but for me it's still a fun listen.
It's too high pitched.
Bass work was great. I love the guitar work.
Yeah, basically if you'd left out the vocals, it would have been great.
I did like the backup singers though. I know what I know.
Yeah, but they got so loud and screechy. I was just like, ah.
Well, that may be another instance of the New York and South Africa tracks being mixed in a way that didn't please your ears.
Probably they did not please my ears. That's for sure.
Okay.
No ear pleasure here.
All right. Thinking of that picture that Lisa put up on my Facebook page.
Oh, jeez.
Anyway,
yeah.
The next track, Gumboots. Thoughts?
The accordion was a little too frantic. That's what I wrote, was frantic accordion. There were parts where it was those high-pitched voices on the track before it, and then you get this frantic accordion. It was just really anxiety-inducing. There's certain sounds for me that induce anxiety, and really high-pitched sounds that are really just really rapid. It bugs me. It bugs me on a really deep primal level, and I just don't want to listen to it. I'm like, no. No. Stop.
Well, my thoughts, one of the lyrics I really love from the song is, why don't we get together and call each other an institute? Lyrically, it's Paul Simon having a lot of fun here. And I think, too, he's commented that, and I've heard other songwriters talk about this, like David Bowie, for instance, and also Phil Collins, where they talk about they don't necessarily write songs the way people think they do, in terms of taking a pad and paper and then writing it out. It's more creating the music and then finding something lyrically that kind of fits it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to write a song. Some people they'll write like poetry, and then they'll come up with music that goes with it. Mm-hmm. Some people will just write a bunch of music and then just start humming along, and then the lyrics come. There's as many ways to write a song as there are to like write a sentence, write a novel, for that matter. Some writers will write in bits and pieces. They'll just write scenes and then they'll stitch them together. And some will just sit down and just write from start to finish. It just depends. Everybody does it differently.
Whatever works for you.
Yeah.
But this is one of those times where you can kind of feel that he's just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing if it fits. And in this case, I think it did. I think it is one of the weaker tracks on the album, but for me, I liked the persistence of the song. You got bouncing. So let's move on to the next one before we have an anxiety attack.
No more frantic accordion, please.
All right. Diamonds on the Soles of Her Shoes.
Okay, this song... Okay, so there was part of me that was like enjoying it, and then part of me that was like, this is a really poorly told fable. Because when you hear the song and if you actually go and read the lyrics like I did, it's like, okay, so there's one of those kind of standard sort of fables, the rich person and the poor person, they fall in love, and there's always something ridiculous thrown in, and just, I don't know, there was something about it I just didn't like. A lot of what this comes down to for me if it's usually either the lyrics or the music, and that's true of most people when it comes to critiquing songs. But for me, it was the lyrics definitely on this song. It was just like, diamonds on the soles of your shoes. Even like, I've like heard about ridiculous things that rich people do, like really rich people do, And I don't think I've heard of anybody doing this. So I know it's like a parable or something. There's some reason for it, and it symbolizes something. But I don't know. I just didn't really like it.
For me, I did have in my notes that I think the lyrics were the weak part of the song, but for me, this is an instance to where the actual music itself was able to mask that. And for me, this is almost too like the Star Wars prequels. And what do I mean by that? Star Wars prequels were not the best films, but when you have John Williams at his absolute best putting out some of his most brilliant work, you're still going to find ways to enjoy it. And yeah. I think in this case, when it comes to the music, as well as Ladysmith Black Mambazo's performance in the song, Paul Simon's weaknesses were for me, masked.
I don't know. There was just something about it that bugged me. And I kept thinking, like, in terms of practical reasons. So I'm like, if you need traction, I can think of other things that I'd rather have on the soles of my shoes than diamonds. That's not going to be very comfortable to walk on either. Just get some Nikes or some good hiking boots.
It'll cost just as much.
Exactly.
Yep. All right. The next song. The first big hit of the album, You Can Call Me Al.
Everyone's heard this song a lot. I don't think it's a bad song. I've just heard it way too many times.
Yeah.
Way too many times. That's the legacy of soft rock radio.
Yeah, there's not much that can be said about this. This, I think, is the most American of the songs.
Oh, yeah. It's very American.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, let's throw in some horns. Woo!
I mean, the video was pretty damn brilliant. I mean, I resisted it for the longest time because I didn't like Chevy Chase for the longest time. But once you get Chevy Chase, then you can get this video, and it was great where you think Paul Simon's going to start singing, and then Chevy Chase does, and then he's just being the jackass that people love. Great bass work on the song. I love the horns. It's just a good song. To Kim's point, I can get folks that don't necessarily want to hear it just because of how much it's been played.
Yeah, that's really what it comes down to. It's a lot like when we were talking about Beatles' Abbey Road, and I was like, yeah, it's a great song. I've just heard it too many times.
Yeah. All right, next track on the album, Under African Skies. What'd you think?
I didn't make any comments, but this is the one with Linda Ronstadt's vocals, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Her vocals just didn't sound right with it for me. If there was going to be somebody singing a backup track on this, I want them to sound less white. I guess is what it comes down to. I like Linda Ronstadt. I do. Mm-hmm. I just don't like her on this song.
She was also a controversial addition to the album.
Yeah, she was very controversial because she did perform at what was it called?
Sun City.
Yeah, the Whites Only Resort. Bad move, Linda. Bad move.
Yeah. She's a great singer. I liked her addition to the song. It did have a Beatlesque ending, but it's not a classic. It's
I don't think her vocals were appropriate for it, both like in terms of her position by playing at Sun City and just the way her voice sounds. They should have had someone who had a more... What's the word I'm looking for? Because there's a certain tone to some voices, like
as James Earl Jones described it with his voice, wanting a darker tone in terms of bass.
Just more like just a deeper, richer vocal. Because hers, I think of her voice as like glass, and like sort of transparent, and it's clear, and it's glass. You needed something that was more molassesy, something a little darker and richer, and
Tina Turner,
sticky. Sure, Tina Turner would have been a good choice, actually.
Okay. All right. The next track, Homeless.
This is the track where I felt like cultural appropriation might be in play because of the fact that it had the Ladysmith Black Mambazo singers and doing songs in I think they were singing either it wasn't Afrikaans, but it was Zulu.
Yeah.
So they were singing, and then all of a sudden here's Paul Simon's white voice coming in with English lyrics, and that's just like, it made me feel a little uncomfortable. I'm like, so it just made me kind of picture in my head, there's all these black singers sitting around making this gorgeous soundscape with their voices and instruments.
And then Paul Simon shows up. Hey.
Yeah, and then, hey, can I play too? And he just starts throwing in words, and they're like, well, okay. You know, guess we have to let him play.
Yeah, I did put in my notes that this is the one song in a Paul Simon album that could have done without Paul Simon.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. He was not necessary for this song to work. He could have just maybe put the song on and not sung on it. Maybe just played instruments and just credited to all the vocals to them.
And it's not like he's done that before. I mean, there's a Simon and Garfunkel album, Old Friends. A few of those tracks end up being like instrumental soundscape type deals. So he could have easily done something like that on this album.
Yeah, if he had just like maybe closed his mouth and let the other folks sing for
do
a
their
while.
jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you just played like, guitar or something on this song and just let Lady Smith Black Mambazo do their thing.
Yep.
It would have been better.
All right, the next track, Crazy Love, Volume 2.
I didn't really make any comments on this.
Well, the reason he called it Volume 2 is, I guess, he didn't realize until almost when the album was published, or at some point beforehand, there was a Van Morrison song called Crazy Love. So he only added the Volume 2 on to kind of differentiate it in people's minds. It's not bad. It's forgettable, but it sounds like it could have been on his previous album, Hearts and Bones. It doesn't feel... This is another one of those American songs, if that makes sense. It does not feel right on this album.
Yeah, I was just kind of like, okay, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't really... If I didn't write anything down about it, it just generally means that I was like, all right.
Yeah. Meh. All right, the next track. That Was Your Mother.
Okay. I like the Zydeco. I like that a lot. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if I'm saying that word right.
I always thought it was Zydeco.
Zydeco? Whatever. I like this song musically. The lyrics, though, the line, "You are the burden of my generation," is basically talking about how his kid is a mistake. This is how I met your mom here, and you're the burden of my generation. I still love you anyway. Basically, telling the child that they're a mistake. And I don't know if this is like a true story kind of song or what, but I did not like that. You never tell a child that they're a mistake. Never. That's just setting them up for years of friggin' therapy. That's what I gotta say about this song.
All right. I like the music part. Another track here. I mean, again, if this had been an instrumental or had different lyrics or a different vocalist, maybe it could have been a little bit better. The lyrics, I didn't focus too much on it, so I didn't catch what you caught there. But yeah, it's forgettable, but the music is worth the price of admission.
Yeah, the music is great. I like the music a lot. It makes me kind of want to dance and like eat something spicy. But yeah, the lyrics, I'm like, okay, so he's talking about, going to town and looking for a lady, blah blah blah, and then all of a sudden, he's talking to the kid that he had with this lady on the road, and how they're a mistake, and it bugged me. It really bugged me.
Yeah, fuck you, Paul Simon.
Yeah.
All right, the last track on the album. We hinted to this when we started here. All Around the World, or The Myth of Fingerprints.
I'm listening to this, and it doesn't have that Los Lobos sound that I like, because Los Lobos worked with him on this song. And then it turns out he didn't give them songwriting credit, and they had to sue him. What a dick. It's a dick move, Paul Simon.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the specifics. I did hear Los Lobos' version. I have not done enough research or cared that much to hear his side of the story as well.
No, there's no his side of the story. They came into the studio, worked with him on this song, they wrote it together, and he didn't give them songwriting credit. That's all that needs to be said.
Yeah, not a cool move. I mean, if he was under the impression that it was going to be a different type of arrangement, then he should have had that written down in a contract.
Yeah, yeah.
So as far as that, the song itself, it sticks out like a sore thumb because for me, if it's like we mentioned on albums like Under the Gun, this is one thing where I think if you switched this with maybe Diamonds on the Soles of Her Shoes, it may have ended a lot better for me. But on the flip side, this album does kind of plant the seeds for his next album, The Rhythm of the Saints, which was still kind of a world music theme, but based more in Central and South American musical influences. But you were going to say something.
No, I just think that maybe he should have just left this off the album altogether, because if you're going to work with Los Lobos and you're not going to make it sound like it came from Central America, because this song's just kind of bland. I mean, I was just listening for like the sort of flamenco-y guitar that a lot of Los Lobos' music has, and I'm just like, where's the guitar? This doesn't even sound like Los Lobos. Yeah. It just was kind of like, well, if you're going to work with them, why are you not going to use the best things that they're good at in your songs?
Their style. I mean...
Yeah, their style. I mean, yeah.
When David Bowie worked with Stevie Ray Vaughan, what did he do? Had him do a guitar solo. It's not like he was going to tell him to play the horns.
Yeah, exactly. It was just kind of disappointing because I like Los Lobos. I like the way their sound, and most of that is because they do that sort of flamenco-y guitar, and it's kind of groovy and kind of fun, and it's nice to listen to, and even the slower songs that Los Lobos does, they're fun to listen to.
They actually, Antonio Banderas did the vocals for the song, but they did the opening theme song to the Robert Rodriguez movie Desperado.
Of course they did,
which was part 2 of the Mariachi trilogy,
and they're friggin' awesome.
Yeah,
and yeah, I was disappointed with this song. It was just like, it says it's with Los Lobos, and I'm just like, this doesn't even sound remotely.
Maybe Los was there, but not Latin. Lobos.
Yeah, it was like they're missing half of it. It's just, it was a loss altogether. It's just not a good song.
All right, Graceland. Final thoughts.
It has its problems, but overall, it's not bad. It's just inconsistent. I like the world music influences. I've always liked world music and African drums and the sounds and the voices, and I found those parts very interesting. It just was kind of, I guess, if I really want to listen to those sounds and that music, I'll go and actually buy a Ladysmith Black Mambazo album or something like that and just listen to the source material.
But he should also be thanked for making sure that we were introduced to Ladysmith Black Mambazo, and I think
that's true.
I think the importance of what he did is on the same level of what the Rolling Stones did for artists like John Lee Hooker for Muddy Waters. Acknowledging their influence on his work and also doing his best to get them record deals, bring them on tour with them, type of deal, and introduce the world, part of the world that would not necessarily go out of their way to find that music to it.
Yeah, and that is a good point. That is the good thing about this album, that it does that.
Yeah, it's not a perfect legacy because, again, as we talked about earlier when we were talking about appropriation, at the end of the day, who made the most money? Paul Simon did, and that's making money off of the hard work of
non-white artists
who were in citizens in an oppressive regime. So it's not perfect on his part. It's not a direct correlation, as direct of a correlation as the example I brought of the Rolling Stones acknowledging Muddy Waters or something like that. But there are still some major similarities between the two, of course. But overall, very good album, for what it did to make the world a smaller place. I think it deserves its spot as one of history's great works of music.
I don't know if I would go quite that far. I'll say that I enjoyed it more than I expected to, and I might listen to it again.
All right. which for most of my work is actually pretty high praise.
That is actually pretty high praise. A lot of what Tim chooses is stuff that I don't really care for.
Yeah,
but
I love how it's Paul Simon and Motorhead.
That's true. We did agree on a lot of the Motorhead, but
yeah,
it is what it is. It's what makes life interesting, and it's what makes this podcast interesting, I hope.
Yep.
To you listeners.
All right. So next time will be your choice.
It is my choice.
You did talk about wanting to put a poll up, but you told me that you will do that for your next choice.
I'll do that for my next choice because I thought about doing it and then I didn't do it. So I I didn't have enough time.
If I had to speculate, I think this choice may be a little bit retaliation for Cannibal the Musical.
No, it's not actually.
Or the Morrissey impression?
Maybe that.
What is it?
No, it's gonna be. Never mind the Bullocks. Here's the Sex Pistols by the Sex Pistols. I was like, I want to pick something that's prior to the 80s because this came out I think in 77?
76, 77, yeah.
Somewhere around there. And this band has had a huge influence on a lot of rock music that has followed. And I was listening to it for, I hadn't listened to it in a while. I was listening to it a couple of weeks ago while I was at work just to wake myself up. And I was like, I really should choose this for one of the things that I do on the podcast is I'm like singing along to myself and bobbing my head. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna have to pick this one. This is one of my favorites. This is one of those albums that like influenced my music taste for sure.
Thank God.
What?
This will be a great choice. Oh my goodness!
Really?
I love this album.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Then we'll have a fun discussion for next time.
Yeah, and I can talk about one of the bootlegs of. It was either a bootleg. No, it may have been on the soundtrack for The Great Rock and Roll Swindle, but it was a cover of Johnny Be Good that the Sex Pistols did. That just Johnny Rotten gave up in the middle of the song and then started yelling at the other bandmates, "Stop playing the fucking song! I don't want to sing this fucking song."
That's very punk.
Yeah. And then of course we can talk about the Sex Pistols when they were on Judge Judy.
Oh, they were what?
They were on Judge Judy. They reunited the original
band.
band.
Don't tell it now. We'll tell it. Save it for next week.
Well, they were on Judge Judy. And Johnny Rotten also supports Donald Trump. So.
Oh. Well, that sucks.
Yeah. But, yeah. Anyway, we will talk about that next week. What? Oh, yeah. Speaking of Cannibal the Musical, it was really kick-ass and amazing. When I posted up on Twitter the link for our bonus episode for our review of Cannibal the Musical. I linked at Trauma Team is the Twitter handle for Trauma Films, and they retweeted it and liked it.
Oh, hooray! That's really cool.
Yeah, Trauma Studios. I'm not going to lie and say that every single film they put out is easy to watch. It's you got to be in the right mood for some of their films, but the reason I love that company to death and love their leader Lloyd Kaufman is how they encourage everybody to just give everything to their art, even if it's something silly.
There's nothing wrong with that.
The
world needs silly stuff.
We need silly, but we also need people that are just giving their all in their art without necessarily worrying about making, $1 billion for their movie.
Yep.
It's because at the end of the day, an artist is an artist, whether you're making money off your art or not.
True.
And that type of passion should be celebrated, not the fact that, this director made $1 billion for this movie or just something that doesn't really have any. Why do people care about box office reports when they shouldn't? Because it turns films into a competition when people should just want to watch movies.
Yeah.
Imagine that. And two, you're celebrating companies earning money. How does that benefit you that Disney had, 6 or 7 or 8 movies reach $1 billion? It doesn't affect anybody. And it doesn't mean those movies are necessarily the greatest in the world.
Yep.
And you gotta, consumers of the arts, especially in America, have to go out of their way to support the local artist.
Passion over profit.
Exactly. Otherwise, you're going to get Transformers all day long, or you're going to get Cats all day long.
Oh God.
And
part of me wants to see that train wreck, but I'm not going to pay for it. I'll wait till it's available for free on one of the streaming services.
Well, I mean, technically, you're paying for it on a streaming service.
Yeah, I know, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I'm already paying for the streaming service. It doesn't matter which bits I choose to watch.
Yeah, and at that point, it's probably like 6 cents would go to it. So.
Yeah, I think I can spare 6 cents.
Okay. Even with Taylor Swift as a kitty.
Kitty,
yeah.
I like kitties.
Well, no, anyway. I had down Tim. All right. I think we're done. Next week, never mind the bollocks. Here's the Sex Pistols.
Yay for Sex Pistols. Whatever a Sex Pistol is. I'm pretty sure that means penis.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think the bullets are?
Sperm. Okay. I think we're done for now.
Well, I'm thinking of that movie Orgasmo. Trey Parker and Matt Stone's second movie, where Chota Boy, the Robin of the group, made this device that shot a beam out and gave people like the most intense orgasm in the world. And then like there was a guy at the end, the villain of the movie, that they just kept on doing it, and he ended up becoming doing like an homage to Jack Nicholson's reveal of the Joker in Batman. Not necessarily reveal, but the first time the Joker realizes he's the Joker, like mirror, that scene.
Okay.
Anyway,
Tim's on a tangent again.
Yeah, imagine that. See you next week. And remember,
it's such a good feeling to know you're alive. It's such a happy feeling. You're growing inside, and when you wake up ready to say, I think I'll make a snappy new day. It's such a good feeling, a very good feeling, the feeling you know that I'll be back when the day is new, and I'll have more ideas for you, and you'll have things you'll want to talk about. I will too. You always make each day such a special day. You know how? By just your being you. Only one person in the whole world like you. That's you yourself. I'll be back next time. Bye-bye.
Subscribe to Friends Talking Nerdy on iTunes, the Google Play Music Store, as well as Spotify. Remember to support Friends Talking Nerdy on Patreon. Goodbye, darling.